So, good morning. I'm going to continue with Trucktong's book, Reading Letters. The letter that I just saw is a question from someone who says, like, how can you translate a tradition like, an Eastern tradition like Tibetan Buddhism with everything that entails into the West? How can you translate that tradition to the West? How can you make it work? And he gives a very long answer. Part of which I just saw, he starts comparing it to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the three, let's say, Western traditions. So I'm curious, I haven't read it, so let's see what he's going to say. The title of this part of the letter is The Vajra Master in Judaism. Vajra Master is the guru, the teacher. There are three major religions that shaped Western history. They are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In Judaism, the relationship between the spiritual preceptor and the disciple finds its greatest blossoming in the Hasidic tradition of the Baal Shem Tov. This is an interesting example because it shows the emergence of a powerful guru-disciple tradition in the midst of modern Western history. In 17th century Europe, there was a revolution of joy within the Jewish community that spread all over the world. This revelation and revolution was brought about by the power, realization, and undying love of one man, the Baal Shem Tov, the master of the good name. The Hasidic tradition is a tradition of beauty, song, and mystical contemplation. With the Hasidic movement came the flowering of the notion of the tzaddik, the spiritual master. There is a Hasidic saying that goes, without the tzaddik, even if there were a ladder to heaven, it wouldn't work. The tzaddik, the essential function of the righteous man, has always existed in Judaism. As it is said, the Talmud teaches us that God, you spell that G-D, because in Judaism you can't pronounce the name of God. But the Talmud teaches us that God asks, who rules over me? And answers that it is the tzaddik. But it is with the generations following the Baal Shem Tov that this took the true form of the Vajra master-disciple relationship as a primary means of attaining spiritual realization. The great Hasidic master, Rabbi Nachman, said, if a person is not bound to a true tzaddik, all his devotion is nothing but twisting and turning and pretending to be something it is not, as if an ape were pretending to be a human being. Okay. One of the most interesting points of the Baal Shem Tov's revolution, which applies to our discussion, is the way in which it spread to all segments of society. The Baal Shem and his successors, the gurus of the Hasidic line, attracted the rich and the poor, the good and the bad, aristocracy and peasants alike. The call of the Spirit is not constrained by any boundary of nation, caste, or class. It is not a contrived democracy, for it sees that not all people are cut out for the intense disciplines of the mystic path. At the same time, it makes no distinctions according to temporary, samsaric class, race, or gender considerations. This was true of the Baal Shem Tov's open revolution of joy, and it was true of the ancient Tantrikas of India. Amongst them were found kings, prostitutes, beggars, scholars, monks, alchemists, and thieves, all practicing under the roof of a single tradition. The Baal Shem Tov gave birth to a homegrown, uniquely Western tradition of guru-disciple relationship. Within it, The disciple recognizes the tzaddik as a source of blessing, and through respect, faith, and devotion, that blessings shower upon the disciple, and that relationship, along with the methods of the path, brings the disciple to spiritual liberation. The beauty and joy of this path is often spoken of in the disciples' works. Let me share some with you. I love these writings because I know, from the depth of experience, that they are referring to my own precious Lama. Whoever considers himself, so this is a quote from Rabbi Nachman, whoever considers himself an independent existent cannot be in more than one place at a time. When a discrete entity stands in one place, it cannot be elsewhere. Thus, if one is engaged in divine service, he cannot gaze at the world around him. However, one who is nothing can be present everywhere. Therefore, the greater the degree to which a tzaddik is incorporated into divine nothingness, the more he is able to see what is taking place in the world. It is not that he stands in a high place far above the world, but rather the category of place does not apply to him at all. End of quote. And another quote from Rebbe Nachman. The basis of everything is to be found to the tzaddik of the generation completely and to accept everything he says as correct, whether it is a major or minor thing. One must turn neither right nor left from what he says, but simply abandon his own ideas as if he knows nothing except what he receives from the tzaddik. So long as a person retains even a residue of his own independent way of thinking, he has not attained fulfillment and is not truly bound to the tzaddik. Simply to look, here's a new quote, or let me see. No, Traktung is carrying on. Simply to look at the face of a tzaddik is a very great thing. How much more so when one is worthy of speaking to him, and even more than this when one hears Torah from his lips. But simply seeing him is very good in itself. Whoever is truly merged with this name, which is the glory and splendor and the true delight of the whole world, whoever draws close to the tzaddik and is subsumed under his name, through this his eyes are opened, and he can begin to examine himself and see where he stands. Then he can return to God and cleanse himself of all of his evil characteristics. He will be worthy of perceiving the greatness of the Creator and of looking at the whole world with clear vision, because his eyes and his mind are opened by a true tzaddik who sends light to the whole world. Sorry, this is all still Rabbi Nachman's quote. It is impossible to gain any true conception of what the tzaddik is in himself. He's totally beyond our grasp. It is only through seeing his followers that one can gain some understanding of his awesome greatness. When one sees that they are men who have achieved great things and who follow God's path in truth, then one can understand the greatness of the tzaddik himself. Telling stories of the tzaddikim, contemplating the wondrous things that happen to them by divine providence is great. Through this you may purify the mind and pass into the world of thought. However, to pass into the world of thought, you must be silent. Even if you were to utter a holy word, even if you were to utter a holy word, this would disturb your state of mind. For thought is extremely high, higher than speech. Even if you remain still and do not speak, there may be distractions that disturb your state of mind. To remedy this, you must purify your consciousness. This is accomplished through stories of the tzaddikim. And one more quote of Rabbi Nachman. Everything has a purpose, and this purpose itself serves another purpose which is even higher. The most important thing of all is the ultimate goal to which everything leads, the joy of the world that is coming. This is the final goal of the entire creation. However, no one except the tzaddikim can in any way conceive of this ultimate purpose. To the extent that a Jew is rooted in the soul of the tzaddik, he too can attain some conception of this goal, depending on how far he has succeeded in breaking his anger with love. If he succeeds, he will come to a level where he can use everything in this world as a means to attain this goal. Rebbe Nachman. In this beautiful tradition of love and transmission, beauty, compassion, love, and mystic insight have been passed from one generation to the next. If one's heart longs for this mystic revelation, it overcomes all fear and shuns protection. And then the Vajra master in Christianity. Christianity, of course, was from its origin based in the tradition of the guru and disciple, while the exoteric churches have always maintained outward institutions wherein the relationship with an absentee guru, Jesus, plays the central role. There has also always been an inner tradition. The writings of the Desert Fathers, such as Saint Anthony, and the profoundly powerful mystic mothers such as Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint Clare, and Christian saints such as Saint Francis and Saint John of the Cross, make clear that they practice the path of obedience in relation to spiritual mentors. The monastic tradition and its parallel tradition of lay hermits has always upheld the esoteric tradition of guru and disciple. These esoteric traditions have not been kept secret but are not well known by outsiders because the demands of such a life are more than most people would wish to bear, and most people have no interest in learning about them. This is true in authentic Tantric Vajrayana as well, even if it would not seem so when it is sold everywhere these days in the marketplace of materialistic grasping. Esoteric practitioners have always been the small minority, those who wish to drive into the human spirit's greatest depth and return with the jewels of love and compassion for all beings. The value of such authentic realizers and practitioners has always been recognized by serious religious and spiritual beings in all cultures, including ours. This is why there has always been a tradition of giving financial support to those on retreat and to monasteries. Even those who would not wish to devote their own lives to attaining spiritual wisdom sometimes see the value in supporting those who do. Beyond this, those who understand the spiritual process also know that such beings' efforts ripple across the expanse of human mind and world as blessings. All esoteric paths can pose risks to delicate psyches of human beings. It is easy to increase one's confusion and ignorance rather than cut through them if we only rely upon the closed loop of our mind's capacity to understand subtle teachings. Then the necessity of guidance from one who has walked before, who is a living emblem of possibility, is understood. This is why the great Saint Anthony, the father of esoteric Christian path, said, I know of monks who fell after much toil and lapsed into madness because they trusted in their own work. So far as possible, for every step that the monk takes, for every drop of water that he drinks in his cell, he should entrust the decision to the old man to avoid making some mistake in what he does. End of quote. The function of the starets in the Orthodox Church is equivalent to the guru and is a beautiful example of the guru disciple relationship. The process of transformation, transfiguration, and translation is of such subtlety that submission to the care of one who has gone before is considered tremendously important. This tradition of spiritual life is as alive today as it has ever been. Bishop Callistos says of this relationship, the figure of the starets, so prominent in the first generations of Egyptian monasticism, has retained its full significance up to the present day in Orthodox Christendom. There's one thing more important than all possible books and ideas, states a Russian layman of the 19th century, and that is the example of an Orthodox starets, before whom you can lay each of your thoughts and from whom you can hear not a more or less valuable private opinion, but the judgment of the Holy Fathers. God be praised, such startsi have not yet disappeared. The structure of this relationship is an organic hierarchy of wisdom. The compassion arisen from realization flows downward to the disciple. The structure of the relationship is based in love, not power. The disciple's devotion flows upward to the realized one as a natural, organic response to love embodied. Is there room for abuse of this? Of course. Human history is the record of beauty made into ugliness by delusion, and that is why on such paths one is always asked to take great care. It is necessary to evaluate and to carefully choose one's guru. If one wanted to become a great pianist, one would wish to find a master of piano, a trusted authority to whom one could submit oneself for instruction. Because a spiritual teacher's authority is being sought in matters of the human spirit, one must be especially careful and practice discriminative wisdom in relation to entering into such a relationship. In the Christian tradition, one is to look for certain characteristics in the spiritual master. Bishop Callistos says, although the starets is not ordained or appointed for his task, it is certainly necessary that he should be prepared. The starets becomes replete with qualities through the inward journey, and it is these qualities that attract students. Perhaps the most famous starets of the church was Saint Seraphim, who said, acquire inward peace, and a multitude of men around you will find their salvation. The qualities of the spiritual guide are listed as insight and discernment, the ability to love others and to make other sufferings his own, to possess love and the power to transform the human environment. To me, dear friend, what is amazing and beautiful is that this role, the guru, is found amongst the most serious practitioners of every tradition with such similar understanding of its import. It says in the Buddhist sutras that bodhisattvas will be born in every place of the world. These examples from Western tradition make this so very clear. One should choose one's Vajra master with care, and then enter the path by degrees, contemplating each stage, its commitments and demands with great attention. Once one has entered the relationship, one chooses submission as a joy, which purifies the mind and heart of all that would separate it from the Buddhahood. This submission is not based in blind faith or a childish need to be taken care of. The choice to submit is an individual choice born of strength, not weakness. The entry into the esoteric process is always this way. Bishop Callistus says on this point, such stories are likely to make a somewhat ambivalent impression on the modern reader. They seem to reduce the disciple to an infantile or subhuman level, depriving him of all power of judgment and moral choice. With indignation we ask, is this the glorious liberty of the children of God? End of quote. In our sublime Vajra path, it is just the same. No one asks you or anyone else to take up this path. You must come to the Vajra master and ask sincerely. There's no force or twisting of arms. You will always be encouraged to expend great effort, establish time and deeds, and prepare before making such a request. No one is benefited by rash decisions in the arena of human life's most intimate processes. In fact, all the great masters of Vajrayana, such as Trungpa Rinpoche, warned disciples time and again to enter the path with care and great forethought. You must be very sure of your own motives and those of your guide. If you enter seeking, if you enter seeking self-serving gain, as most do, the relationship will be one of frustration. It will cause pain. Of this there can be no question, since this motive causes pain wherever one goes. You should not enter the path without carefully looking to see if you can live in harmony with the teachings and the style of the teacher. The full blossoming of the relationship takes time and care. Outside of the grasping hope and greed of the ego, there is no reason to hurry in such a way as to cast discriminative attentiveness to the wind. A final point Bishop Ware makes is that the spiritual father does not want your enslavement. Do not force man's free will. The task of the spiritual father is not to destroy a man's freedom, but to assist him in seeing the truth for himself, not to suppress a man's personality, but to enable him to discover himself, to grow to full maturity, and to become what he really is. If on occasion the spiritual father requests an implicit and seemingly blind obedience from his disciple, this is never done as an end in itself, nor with a view to enslaving him. The purpose of this kind of shock treatment is simply to deliver the disciple from his false and illusory self, so that he may enter into true freedom. So that is the end of the section on Judaism and Christianity. And tomorrow I'll continue on the uh, Vajra Master and Islam. So have a great day. Hope you enjoyed. And we'll carry on tomorrow. Bye.